Welcome to the League of Women Voters Tacoma-Pierce County Primary Election Candidate Forum for Peninsula Metropolitan Park District Position 5. I'm Lydia Zepeda, and I'm moderator for this forum. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Tacoma-Pierce County and our community sponsors, I welcome the candidates and audience to this Community Candidate Forum. The League of Women Voters Tacoma-Pierce County acknowledges that we gather on the ancestral lands of the Coast Salish peoples, surrounded by their traditional waters in the shadow of Mount Tacoma. We actively seek inclusive and respectful partnerships that honor Indigenous cultures, histories, identities, and current realities. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization whose mission for the past 103 years has been to empower informed and active participation of citizens in government. Candidate forums are one of the many ways that we do this. Anyone 16 years or older can be a member of the League of Women Voters. For more information on membership, go to our website, lwvtpc.org. That's lwvtpc.org. The candidates in ballot order for the Peninsula Metropolitan Park District Position 5 primary are Billy Samuel, Madelyn Hunter, and Stephen Nielson. Billy Samuel will not be here tonight. The primary election is August 1st. If you're not yet registered or have moved, you may register or change your address online at votewa.gov. That's votewa.gov. votewa.gov by Monday, July 24th. If you are already registered as a voter and your address is correct, your ballot has been mailed to you. It was mailed on July 14th. Your ballot must be postmarked or dropped in a ballot box by 8 p.m. Tuesday, August 1st. This forum is being recorded and will be posted at the League of Women Voter Tacoma-Pierce County website, lwvtpc.org. It's lwvtpc.org. Questions have been prepared by the members of the League of Women Voters Tacoma-Pierce County and our co-sponsoring organizations. We invite live audience questions via text to 253-861-6824. That's 253-861-6824. Questions must be directed to all candidates and may be reworded or consolidated. The timekeeper today is Terry Baker of the League of Women Voters Tacoma-Pierce County. She'll hold up cards to let the candidates know when they have 60 seconds remaining, 30 seconds remaining, 15 seconds, and when it's time to stop. The stop card is red, and you may finish a short sentence, but please stop, or I will interrupt. Please stay on gallery view so that you can see me and the timekeeper, Terry Baker. Please do not talk unless it's your turn, and please mute yourself when it's not your turn to speak. The audience is on mute and cannot use the chat function. A reminder that civility is expected. I ask each of you to confirm that you agree to our ground rules, which, among other things, state that you don't make personal attacks or even personal comments about each other. If you agree to our ground rules, please give me the thumbs up so that, thank you very much, I appreciate that. All right, each candidate has 2 minutes for an opening statement. After that, the order of questions will rotate and each candidate will be asked the same question. At the end, each candidate will have a 1-minute closing statement. The order of opening statements, of the 2-minute opening statements for Peninsula Metropolitan Park District Position 5 are ballot order. And so we'll start with Madelyn Hunter. Madelyn Hunter, please.
Hello, and thank you so much for having me. As a candidate of this Penn Met Parks position, I have a pretty unique position as I am a theater and business owner and a former Penn Met contractor. This makes me pretty well equipped for this role. With 4 years of successfully managing and performing arts organizations, I possess leadership, collaboration, and result-oriented skills. My arts background gives me an eye for detail and an appreciation for the value of park and recreation facilities. Having worked closely with Penn Met staff, volunteers, and the executive directors, I understand the inner workings and areas that need improvement. I bring a deep understanding of the arts, project management, and strategic approach to financial management. I'm passionate about creating a vibrant community spaces through effective collaboration, and I will prioritize environmental sustainability and transparency, ensuring community engagement and park development. Together, we can enhance PenMec Park to enrich the lives of residents and visitors. If elected, I promise to be a voice for the people, a voice for the children, a voice for the taxpayers, and of course, a voice for the PenMet employees. Thank you again for having me.
Thank you very much. Stephen Nielson, your 2-minute statement.
All right, thank you. I want to start by thanking the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. Like I was saying prior to the beginning here, this type of forum, this type of civil communication is what elections are all about and what a community is all about. So I really do appreciate the effort and the time that goes in by the League of Women Voters and what you all do. I also want to thank my family, without whom I wouldn't be able to do these sort of things and give this kind of time to my community and to the parks. All of my volunteers, some of them are here tonight, so thank you all. You know, you guys are putting in countless hours in planning and the innovation conversations that we've been having, and the community and voters that have voiced their need and their desire for my campaign, and the support and enthusiasm that I've run across as I'm out there knocking on doors and hitting the pavement. So my name is Stephen Nielson, and I do intend to be your Parks Commissioner for Position 5. Parks have the power to change the future through inspiration, providing parks programs such as youth baseball. I've been a coach for 5 years. The power to educate through the cause of conservation and environmentalism. The power to empower by strengthening the opportunity to volunteer in our community. And the power of leading by example by serving everyone from 9 to 99. And everybody who is running for this position and serving needs to understand the importance of that power. Our parks would benefit from my leadership, my passion, my experience. I've been Parks Commissioner for the City of Ording. I was chairman of the Parks Commission. I volunteered with the Audubon Society, and I extra emphasis on conservation, restoration, and trail management. I've been a coach for the PenMet Youth for 5 years, and I've served, like I said, as the chairman of a Parks Commission before. We'll have an opportunity to get into some of my my positions and why I want to run for this office. But I know that I am uniquely qualified with a ton of experience, and I'm just happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both. Now we come to the questions. Each candidate will get up to 90 seconds to answer each question. Again, live audience can send questions to 253-861-6824. That's 253-861-6824. Text those questions and we will include them probably towards the end. The candidate order will rotate with each question. So for question number 1, we'll start with Stephen Nielson. First question. What are your budget priorities for the Peninsula Metro Park District? Why? And how would you pay for them? Stephen Nielson, please.
All right. So I've got the question as budget priorities, why, and how we would pay for them. So I understand funding is a crucial part of beautiful parks. My campaign has been about beautification, natural conservation efforts, and safety. So my budget priorities is going to start with safety. I want to make sure that there's a meaningful line item for safety and security at each one of the parks. In my candidate statement, I addressed that we hear on a weekly basis that cars that are visiting, for instance, the Cushman Trail, are vandalized and burglarized, and this is something that we need to address, and it needs to be done meaningfully. As far as the funding for it, I think that we need a multifaceted approach. There is a $17 million levy lid lift going on this year. I am not an advocate for that. I think that we need to actively seek state and federal grants for supplementing our budget. I think we need to foster public and private partnerships to secure sponsorship by donation. We need to explore more innovative funding opportunities that promote transparency in our financing, and that's going to be how we get to long-term sustainability and safety.
Thank you. Madelyn Hunter, what are your budget priorities? Why and how will you pay for them?
Thank you. So one of the first things that I would do is reinstate the park host programs. Those are something that was cut out pretty immediately from the commissioners, which I still have not found out why. And that would save the taxpayers $40,000 a year alone. My budget priorities are the safety of the children and the PenMet employees themselves. The maintenance staff has not received a cost of living wage in the past 3 years. I would work with fiscal management pretty heavily, as some of the executive directors received $80,000 raises. I would work on reallocating that back to the people. PenMet is in a very strong financial position and has been, and I'll get into a bit of that later, but they have been told that they can maintain their parks, their employees, and everything else they have going on with the money that they have without the levy lid lift. So I'm also against it with Steve. And I believe that there is money in this budget that we can get through doing what we continue to do and through maintaining good connections with our employees. As we all know, turnover costs money. And when we listen to the employees and we create safety parks for our children, we can create a better PenMet.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with Madelyn Hunter. Why is access to green space important for all? And what, if any, inequities in access have you identified that need to be addressed within the park district?
This is an excellent question. Thank you. So green spaces for all is crucial. Mental health and the ability to be able to go outside are directly correlated. More so, having a safe space to go to leads to people feeling included, leads to happier people, leads to happier parks. What we're seeing now in PenMet is a lack of diversity, not only at our parks, but on the core level with the employees. So I will be working on making a more diverse community as well. One of the things that I was able to do recently with the Gig Harbor parks is put on a Pride in the Park, where we had a lot of different and a lot of diverse people come out and enjoy the Gig Harbor parks. I plan on making sure everyone feels safe, included, and has access to these parks. One of the ways we're going to do that is starting on the level with the commissioners and with the employers, and making sure that the employees feel safe signing up for this, because right now we are working with Stardio Wilson, who is an African-American man who was recently fired for, we're still trying to figure out the reason. And so it starts at the level of the workers. And once we can get a more diverse PenMet, we can make sure to spread that out to the parks.
Thank you. Steve Nielson, what is access to why is access to green space important for all? And what, if any, inequities are to access have you identified that need to be addressed within the park district?
Yeah. Excellent question. And I would like to start by addressing that we live in a very unique location within our Cascadia bioregion. And the area on our peninsula is very important. The riparian zones that we have for all of our creeks coming out of the peninsula and the coastline are very important to salmon and to migratory birds. And of course, we know that both salmon and migratory birds are crucial and essential to some endangered mammalian life in the Salish Sea. So access to green space is access to those natural areas. We need to balance growth with conservation efforts. We need to retain and protect those sensitive areas, and we need to focus on land acquisition along our coastline that we can incorporate into some of those conservation and preservation areas for the purpose of parks use and access, so that we can educate and expose our youth and those in our community to those kind of activities and the importance of those kind of activities for the future. As far as the inequities, access to those areas needs to be improved through trail system maturity, through opportunities for seniors to have I was working with a group and we were coming up with ideas for like Uber for seniors as opposed to shuttle buses and things like that. So we do have those systems that we could put in place. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next question. We'll start with Stephen Nielson. What strategies do you propose to communicate with constituents to ensure that the Parks Department is aware of any concern and addresses them in a timely manner? Stephen Nielson.
Of course, yeah, we definitely live in the communication age, that's for sure. So it should not be difficult to have open communication and transparency through social media, through improved communication websites, so on and so forth. One of the things about leadership is building trust. And if you do not communicate and if you're not transparent, then that trust breaks down. And that's where we're at right now with our current board and our current leadership is there is not the level of transparency, and so therefore there's not that trust. It is not it's not difficult. We do have a great IT team within the parks, and an incorporation of social media and having social media focals for those types of communications on new platforms through new networks is not something that's an unreasonable ask. It's not something that's an unreasonable cost, and it's something that would be vital to rebuilding that trust and that transparency, that type of open, immediate communication with the Parks Board and the Parks Administration.
Thank you. Madelyn Hunter, what strategies do you propose to communicate with constituents to ensure that the Parks Department is aware of any concerns and addresses them in a timely manner?
Yes, absolutely. So one of the things that we already mentioned, but it's trust in the community, and it's the commission gaining the community's trust back. And the way we do that is by listening and creating a safe environment for people to come and speak to us again. I've already mentioned the PenMet employees, but one of the things that I will be doing within my first 100 days there is sitting down with every single employee and seeing how we can do better as the commission and what we need to do to listen to them. I've been out on the town talking to taxpayers, seeing what they need. And that's where I heard about this Parks Host program and why it was such a shame that it got removed from our system. One of my plans immediately is we are in this age of communication where we can Instagram, we can text, we can do all of these things. But one way that I plan on making sure we can get out is following Franklin Roosevelt and doing fireside chats at local coffee shops or our local parks around the area, and inviting people to come and talk to me as a commissioner to hear their complaints and to respond to them outside of those commissioner meetings. Because as it's set up right now, they only have 3 minutes to talk and commissioners are not allowed to respond. So by having fireside chats, we are able to maintain a connection with with the people that we're serving.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with Madelyn Hunter. How will you work with jurisdictions in Pierce County to assure that if people who are experiencing homelessness and staying overnight in the parks in your district have an appropriate shelter space elsewhere before they're asked to leave? Madelyn Hunter.
I love this question. In Gig Harbor, we have a unfortunate situation where a lot of times, instead of handling homelessness, we pack them up and we move them to Tacoma. That's something that I have seen over and over again. There are no safe spaces for our people without homes. There's not a lot of safe spaces around here for them. And there's not places for them to seek help. So if we have this situation where homeless people or people without homes are ending up in our parks, I plan on making it so we can get them to a homeless shelter or providing food and clothing for them. The fact that this hasn't been implemented into our commission and into our parks is not okay. So there are things that we can do to make this better, and there's things that we have not been able to do yet. It's a problem that I've seen through Gig Harbor in general, but especially with our parks, I plan on making sure that our homeless people have a place to stay, whether that be at a homeless shelter or making arrangements so that they can feel safe at least for one night.
Thank you. Stephen Nielson, please.
So when it comes to the topic of homelessness, it's important to understand that homelessness, especially homelessness in the parks, is a safety concern. Now, I want to preface my comments by understanding we've got the Tacoma mission, we've got battered women's shelters, and we do have resources that are available. It's not the commission, the Parks Commission's responsibility to determine what types of services those folks need. Those folks need to be provided those services elsewhere. What we do need to make sure that we do is we maintain safety in the park. I have 4 children. I've got three daughters and a son of 4 years. And one of the things that my son loves to do is go barefoot. Now I do know that there are multiple variances of homelessness, but one one crisis in the homeless community is the affliction of drug use and needle drug use. And so if we're allowing encampments, especially where drug use is occurring, and my son happens to be going barefoot in the park, that's something that as a father, as a commissioner, I can't condone. So, it is a security issue. It's a safety issue for us. I don't think that that squatting in parks is something that should be tolerated. Those services are available, and our community as a whole should rally together to help our community members who are struggling. But I do not think it's within the bounds of the Parks Commission to solve that problem.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with Stephen Nielsen. What role, if any, do you think the Peninsula Metro Park District has in addressing climate change resilience and biodiversity, either through its energy, transportation, and purchasing policies and/or its activities and outreach? Stephen Nielsen, please.
All of the above, Lydia. Thank you so much. This is a key pillar of my campaign is conservation, preservation, and environmentalism. Like I said in my opening statement, or in the green spaces question, we have a very unique position in our Cascadia bioregion. We've got somewhere on the order of 100 miles of coastline within our parks district, and that coastline, included with those riparian zones, are imperative for the survival of salmon and the salmonid species, as well as the endangered mammals like orcas. So making sure that we have growth that is advocated for those environmental elements, for conservation, for preservation, and that we focus our future growth on those natural spaces, open spaces, and we use it to advocate and educate the next generation of the importance of maintaining, of conserving, and preservation of those zones, and advocating for a stronger and healthier Cascadia bioregion by leading by example, training our children, training our community members, and showing the rest of the Salish Sea what can be done and what should be done to right the wrongs, and to start thinking about the future.
Thank you. Madelyn Hunter, please.
Of course, we need to be playing a crucial role in environmental activism. Our district's natural spaces, parks, and facilities have a direct impact on the well-being of not only our community, but of course our environment. One of the things that I have written a policy about is PenMet needs to start recycling. That's something that they don't do, and that is something that I have seen time and time again. As someone who has worked with PenMet as a contractor for almost 4 years, I can tell you how much goes to waste and how we need to work on changing that. So I think implementing programs with kids, starting there and making sure that they understand how important our green spaces are. I have started a group called the Gig Harbor Goddesses, where we teach young women about the importance of nature. And we go around to our different green spaces and learn about the ecosystem and climate. And this has been really helpful in just understanding even what pollution is and why it's important to recycle. We should always prioritize our green spaces. We should always figure out ways to be more sustainable, and we need to be practicing our own stewardship measures. This includes reforestation initiatives and protection of wildlife habitats, and I believe that we can do that with PenMet. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, and we'll start with Madelyn Hunter. How have you demonstrated your commitment to anti-racism? Give specific examples of working with marginalized groups. Madelyn Hunter, please.
So the most recent example that I have is working with Teamsters on this Stardio Wilson, who again I have mentioned before. He is a Black man who was fired unjustly from Penn-Met-Parks, and we are currently working on getting him back into the into his role because he is incredible at his job and he's a very nice guy. And one of the things that I plan on doing in my first 100 days is implementing a policy about diversity and also a policy on how and why people get fired, because this is just racism in our parks and it cannot be tolerated. I've done quite a few things for the Black Lives Matter movement, from going to protest to speaking out on racism. Gig Harbor is a place that can always use more diversity. And so making sure people feel safe and friendly. As a business owner, I do my best to make sure that I am hiring diverse citizens of our community, and I will keep maintaining that. This is an incredibly important issue, and I believe that Penn-Met-Parks can do better, and I believe they will do better, whether that's with me as commissioner or me going to those board meetings and making sure that happens. It will be something that happens. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephen Nielson, please.
Thank you. Yeah, so the question was, how have I demonstrated commitment to end racism? Is that correct?
How have you demonstrated your commitment to anti-racism?
Anti-racism. All right.
And give specific examples of working with marginalized groups.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So dating back to 2007, 2008 timeframe, I began involvement with the Republic of Lakota movement through Richard Means and assisting those marginalized communities when it came to specifically child welfare and child endangerment. And there is an instance where Indian children and Native children are removed from their family, and I worked with the legal team and with Richard Means to help folks find the kind of legal help that they can to get their children back all across the nation. I think one of the things, and especially here in the Northwest, is important to understand is that we are in tribal areas, and this is one of your founding items as well. And it's often overlooked, the impact that we've had in tribal communities. So I've advocated and worked for a lot of years where I could and when I could to assist, to help, to advocate for those communities.
Thank you. Next question, and we'll start with Steve Nielson. Describe your experience collaborating with city, county, and state officials and agencies. Steve Nielson.
So in my past, I was in the city of Ording from 2013 to 2015. At that time, I was working with the mayor, with the city council, and I was asked to join the Parks Commission at the time and the Civil Service Commission. Once I had joined, I was appointed as the chairman of both of those commissions. And had to work with legislators for funding, with the state for funding elements for new parks within the city of Ording, and also working with the police force for security in those areas as part of the Parks Commission, and working through hiring, firing, and disciplinary actions through the police force. So that is an excellent example of my direct involvement as a leader on a commission, directly interfacing with city, state, and local officials.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madelyn Hunter.
So I lived in this area for about 6 years, and my most recent interaction is the Pride Parade, or Pride in the Park. That's something where I went and spoke to city government officials or Gig Harbor officials about how and why it is so important to make sure that we are honoring and respecting Pride and the LGBTQ plus community. I was able to meet with 3 city council members on that. And most recently, I spoke to the mayor and I was nominated and chosen for the Arts Commission. In my past, I helped with the mayor of Ridgefield, which is where I'm from, with ice cream socials and bringing more friendliness and fun to the community. And prior to that, I helped with getting a hospital built with the mayor of Vancouver. So talking to city officials and getting to know people on a level of respect and trust is very important to me. And working with the Gig Harbor City Council to make sure we had a safe and loving and caring Pride in the Park was also incredibly important to me. And that showed very well because I was able to get voted in as the Arts Commissioner.
Thank you. Next question. We'll start with Madelyn. Hunter. If elected, what changes will you try to make and how will you achieve them?
So the first thing I will do is I'll sit down with the employees and I will listen to what they have to say. The next thing is I will sit down with the taxpayers and listen to what they have to say and what they want. For the past 6 years, we have heard what the commissioners want. We have seen what the commissioners want. We've seen what other people want, but we haven't heard from the employees. We haven't been hearing from the taxpayers, and that needs to change. So the first thing I'm going to do is sit down and listen. I will also be making sure that I can speak with the parents who have enrolled their kids into Penn Met Park programs and events to see what needs to change there and how we can do better. Because I can sit here all day and tell you the changes that I want to make, but until I can talk to the taxpayers, until I can talk to the employees, until I can talk to the parents, I'm just guessing. I plan on listening, and then I plan on fixing, and I plan on doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve Nielson. If elected, what changes will you try to make and how will you achieve them?
Yeah, I do want to say that yeah, having a commission that listens is definitely a great response to that question. So I do have to give 2 thumbs up to my running not mate, running friend. We're friends out here. But that being said, the biggest area of concern that I would focus on is how we can quickly and expeditiously serve our senior community. I was meeting with a representative of the senior community about a week ago, and she was tearing up in stating that um, there are needs that she has in her community. There are a lot of promises that have been made, but the commission and the board is just dragging their feet, and her fear is that she won't get to experience any of the benefits that she's paying for. So I do know that that being on the commission, it's a legislative position, and we have to work together, and we have to come to some level of agreement. But one of the things that I would advocate for is speeding up some of these projects that are impacting some of those vulnerable elements within our community, like the senior community.
Thank you. Next question. What unique skills or goals do you feel you can contribute to the Parks Board as a member? Steve Nielson.
I went on mute and should not have. I'm an aerospace engineer, and I've spent 20 years as a rocket scientist. And so what that means is that I've got 20 years of problem solving. Um, the parks and our community have a ton of problems, and I bring unique problem solving skills. I think that would be beneficial to the board, being able to ask the types of questions that might help steer some of the fellow board members in a direction that would be more favorable for our community. And I have that unique I don't know, people skills, if you will, as part of that, in kind of being a natural born leader. So I think that, yeah, my years as a problem solver are definitely going to be beneficial. Also, like I said, I do have experience as a parks commissioner and a chairman of a parks commission. I've personally designed parks for the city of Ording, and I was recently endorsed by the current mayor for my lasting effect on the community. When he had heard that I was running for this position, he reached out and endorsed me for this. So that kind of commitment, longstanding commitment, and problem-solving skill, I think, is something that would be a definite benefit to the board and to the community.
Thank you. Madelyn Hunter, please.
Hi, so I've had about 6 years of running my own business, which gives me a unique insight on payroll, how to manage a budget, how to run employees and make sure that we're doing positive changes, and how to interact with the community. So I own a French Toast Theater, which is a kids business that works with 1.5-year-olds all the way to the age of 13. And this is, as a recreation program, this gives me a lot of insight into what families want and into what kids need. One of my main concerns with PenMet Parks is the safety and regulations that we have on our spaces and on the volunteers and leadership that is in charge of our children. And so one of the insights that I have is how to train employees well, how to train employees in first aid, how to make sure that they know what to do when a kid is crying, right? That's something that I know how to train very well. On top of that, I have, I am very detail oriented, and that's something that I feel like we need on board. And I know that with my expertise, we can make positive changes. But mostly, I think that my fiscal management is going to be something that is incredibly important because I have to run a business and pay my employees, and I have to know how those budgets work. And I think that PenMet could really, really use those skills.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with Madelyn Hunter. How should PenMet Parks coordinate with land use planning, the city of Gig Harbor, and unincorporated Pierce County? Madelyn Hunter, please.
So after talking to some city council officials on either merging or working together with the parks, I think there's a really beautiful way that we can use our Peninsula School District, city of Gig Harbor and their parks, and PenMet Parks to all work together cohesively. I don't know how that would work exactly, so I would have to do more research, and I would have to, of course, talk to the taxpayers and see what they want, as well as people of the community. But I do think that there is a beautiful blend here where we can work together to create better parks. Because, for example, if we have a giant or one of those big lawnmowers that breaks down, we can go, instead of buying a new one, we can go and borrow it, or we can go and get someone to help us fix it in a quicker way. So instead of having to pay someone immediately to fix this because it's an immediate problem, we can wait and still fix the problem and find a more cost-effective solution. So I think there's a great way that we can merge this all together.
Thank you. Steve Nielson, please.
Yeah, excellent question. Thank you for asking it. I think first and foremost, we need to coordinate in good faith. There is a question that was posed to the three candidates within the last few weeks about whether or not we would advocate for combining the city of Gig Harbor and Peninsula or PenMet Parks. I think that that's definitely something that that needs to be left to the citizenry and to the taxpayers. But while that is being worked out amongst our community, we definitely need to be operating in good faith. There is evidence of sour relationships that need to be mended between the Parks Commission And we as a parks board need to instruct and educate the parks administration in how they're interacting with these other agencies, so that we can identify any source of conflict, identify, like Madelyn was saying, any resource shortages, and have those sort of open and good faith, good faith opportunities. And one thing that I will absolutely advocate against is charging usage fees in our parks for anybody outside of the district. That's a power play, and should not be advocated by anybody on the board, anybody in the administration. I think that our park should be open to everybody who wants to use them, and it's not asking too much of us, the taxpayers, to support that. So good faith. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with Steve Nielson. This is an audience question. Should the PenMet board take into account the carbon footprint of building and maintaining an indoor swimming pool in a community surrounded by beaches? Steve Nielson.
I think that they absolutely should take that into consideration. I think when one of the things about the beautification and natural preservation element of my campaign is whenever we do utilize the land, we need to make sure that we are offsetting through other land acquisition and preservation projects. So that is definitely something that needs to be advocated for. Now, I will say that that the aquatic center that is being proposed or that is on the board is specifically targeting the senior community, and the beaches are not necessarily swimmable for the type of activities that targeted community would want. So I do believe that an aquatic center is something that would be a benefit to the community and a key demographic within the community. But also, I do want to strongly advocate for, like I said, land buyback, preservation efforts, conservation efforts to offset the environmental impact that such a large facility would have on our community.
Thank you. Madelyn Hunter, please.
Yes, absolutely. We do need to be considering the carbon footprint. And before we go and creating pools, which I do think would be great for our seniors, I do think we need a senior center. I do think there's a lot of good that we could do with that. But before we do any of that, we need to really figure out what's going on internally. So we need to get better systems in place so we can have happier employees, so our parks can be maintained to the top notch, and that we are making sure that everyone is getting what they need before we create a aquatic center or before we create a senior center. I am a big believer on getting your house in order before you build more on. And I think this is a great example of something that we can work on. So we need to figure out how to get our carbon footprint down first before we could even look at a pool. We need to work on making sure that our maintenance staff has all of the qualifications they need to be successful and everything they need to be safe before we look into getting more things. But absolutely, we need to be considering the carbon footprint for everything that we do. Climate change is just getting worse and worse and worse, and it's people like us who are going to be the change.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with Madelyn Hunter. Do you have plans to expand community partnerships? An example is the gymnastics program with Harbor Gymnastics. Madelyn Hunter, please.
So I was one of the people who got to expand with French Toast Theater. I was a contractor there. So I think there's a lot of beautiful things we can do in order to expand our programming. And I think that should be done. I think there's beautiful ways to reach out and make sure that we are providing everything we need to our kids. Again, I think we need to take a step back and look at what we can be doing better before we charge forward. And that means making sure that anyone who's going to be alone with children has a background check, and anyone who's going to be alone with children has up-to-date training. So I think reaching out and getting more recreation programs into our parks is a great idea. And I think making it more accessible to people is incredible. But again, making sure those operating systems so that we are making our parks and our recreation the safest it can possibly be for kids is going to be a top priority.
Thank you. Stephen Nielson, please.
Yeah, absolutely. When it comes to community partnership, it really comes into the need of the community, the desire of the community. For instance, I've got of my 4 children, 2 of them are in community or private sports, one through gymnastics and one through Penn Met baseball, and now moving into school, school sports. So if the desire is there, then the parks system needs to advocate for those skills and access to some of those programs. A really great example that I was in favor of was with my specific experience with baseball is that last year Penn Met Parks teamed with the Tacoma Narrows traveling team, and that gave these entry level players an opportunity to be able to play up and get some of those additional skills. So it's those types of partnerships, those types of outreach. There is zero cost, zero effort, but massive gain. Also understanding the safety element of those things. I think that everything that Madelyn said is absolutely right on there. But when you step back and you look at the question, the Penn Met should be advocating for more outreach, more volunteerism, and more opportunities for everybody across the age spectrum within our community.
Thank you. This is going to be the last question. What do you see as the most important issue facing the Parks District over the next term, 6 years? Steve Nielsen.
That's a very easy question, and it's going to be on the general election ballot. It's a $17 million levied lid lift that the Penn Met board was voting on today after the second reading, and they're sending it to the voters. There is no need for a tax increase, definitely not in this economy, and definitely not now. Taking more money from the taxpayers just because the valuation of our property is up doesn't mean that we necessarily have that money in our pocket. So putting additional squeeze on the taxpayers is not something that I am an advocate of. It is definitely something that's going to come up forum after forum. It's something that I talk about every single day as I'm knocking on doors, as I'm meeting community members. And so I just want everybody to know, without a doubt, I am absolutely against the levy lid lift. I think that we do need to get our financial house in order. We need to make our budget transparent. We need to have budget plans where every single one of our parks, we know what the startup cost is, the maintenance cost, and the decommission cost, and we can tell on a park by park, project by project basis where we are underfunded or overfunded. That's going to be an issue that folks are going to be talking about for the next 6 years.
Thank you. Madelyn Hunter, please.
Absolutely in agreement with the levy lid lift, but one of the things that I think we're going to be struggling with over this next 6 years is getting the trust of our community and the trust of our peers and the trust of our employees back. There has been, unfortunately, a lot of distrust going on, and I think that we need to be working hard to listen to what the people need. Going out and talking to the taxpayers and learning how much they loved and adored the Parks Host program, and then looking at the finances of it and realizing that we could be saving, again, $40,000 minimum a year if we put those programs back in, is just an example of trust, because that program was taken away and it really, really affected the people of Fox Island. So working on maintaining that trust and getting it back and doing the correct things, like opposing the levy lid lift, because what they're talking about, we don't have all of the facts. And one of the things that Penn Met is working on doing now is saying that if the levy doesn't pass, then the employees are going to suffer, which is not true. And nowhere has it ever said that that money goes to employees. And in fact, we have seen that we haven't even seen a cost of living adjustment, again, from the maintenance staff, the ones who are there to beautify and make our parks beautiful. They haven't even seen that. So I think getting the trust back is what is going to be the toughest thing to do over the next 6 years.
Thank you. Now it's time for closing statements. Each candidate has a minute for their closing statement. We'll change the order from the opening statement. So we'll start with Steve Nielson. Steve Nielson, your 1 minute closing statement.
All right. Once again, I would just like to thank the League of Women Voters, my family and supporters, and Madelyn. Great job tonight. Really happy to be doing this with you. I think you're a worthy opponent, and I look forward to the rest of the week and all of our other forums. Look, our parks reflect the balance that we want in our lives and our community. Our parks should be plentiful and serve the diverse needs of all within our community. That means our parks need to be natural, they need to be beautiful, and they need to be safe. Natural means we need to balance the growth and conservation. And part of that beautification is funding, is the financial aspect of it, and making sure that our budget is right. We talked about the conservation efforts and the importance of the natural elements within our community. As your parks commissioner, I'm going to be your advocate for for conservation and for stewardship. I'm going to strive to ensure that our parks are safe, and I'm going to be a champion for transparency and trust when it comes to our budget, because leadership is all about gaining that trust. I'm asking for an opportunity to earn the trust and the vote of everyone within our district. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank you. Madelyn Hunter, please.
Well said. Well, thank you so much for having me. And what I want to say is I decided to run for this office because of a deep love that I feel for this community. It has been instrumental in my success as a business owner. When I left Penn Met, I didn't know where I was going to go. I just knew that something had to change and I could no longer support them. And that's when Fox Island came to my aid. So when I heard the concerns of the citizens, and when I went out and I learned more about how Penn Met was affecting people and they asked me to run, I knew I could do something to make change. I felt a strong calling to address those concerns because this place isn't just a place I live, it is my home. And the incredible sense of community has had a profound impact on my life. Running for Penn Met Parks Commissioner is a way that I can give back to the people who helped me. If elected, I will work tirelessly to ensure the concerns of Fox Island and Gig Harbor citizens are heard, valued, and addressed. I will continue to be a voice no matter what for the children, the Penn Met employees, and the taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you both. In ballot order, the candidates for Penn Met Park District Position 5 primary are Billy Samuel, Madelyn Hunter, and Stephen Nielsen. Your ballot will be mailed out July 14th. You should vote early and no later than August 1st. We'd like to thank the candidates who participated, the timekeeper, Terry Baker, the audience who sent great questions in, and the Tacoma-Pierce County League of Women Voters, our community sponsors, the Affordable Housing Consortium, AAUW of Puyallup, Latinx Unidos of South Sound, the NAACP of Tacoma, Sumner Waller Community Association, and the Tacoma Urban League. You can see other League of Women Voter candidate forums at lwvtpc.org. Read your voters pamphlet and look at vote411.org. That's vote411.org, where you can find answers to questions posed to all candidates running for office. Read the candidates' websites and do everything that you can to be an educated voter. And don't forget to vote before August 1st. Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful evening. Bye-bye.